Are the Patriots on the brink of disaster? We examine along with the coaching staff here on Patscast.
Patscast, we're breaking it down. From Foxboro's view to the struggles in town. One bad loss away.
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. This is one of those weeks. We haven't had one of these weeks in about a month now where we are closely assessing the New England Patriots and the coaching staff. Perhaps I was a little bit premature on the podcast a couple of months ago, and I was saying things like Jerod Mayo should be on the hot seat, DeMarcus Covington, Alex Van Pelt. Things started to turn around here over the last month or so, but Sunday's performance against the Miami Dolphins was a huge step back for this organization and this coaching staff. So let me start by posing this question, and let me know if you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments. What changes, as of right now, would you like to see made to the coaching staff heading into the 2025 NFL offseason? Is it the coordinators? Does it go all the way up to the head coach? Maybe you don't want to see Tyler Hughes back. Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to hear from you, but we need to start seeing some improvement here, and it seemed like we were getting there slowly over the last 4 weeks before the Miami game. The Patriots had, I would say, decent performances. Not great, but decent performances against teams like the New York Jets, where they won at home. The Tennessee Titans, although the offense played very poorly that game, they were still in it, went into overtime, had a spectacular game on the road against the Chicago Bears with the 9 sacks, looked like a completely different team. And then they held their own against the LA Rams and nearly had a game-winning comeback there at the end before Drake May threw the game-sealing interception. But at least you could come out of those games feeling like, all right, we know this is a rebuilding year. We know the player personnel is not great. We know all the injury issues the Patriots have had, but they're starting to get a little bit better there, and you felt a little bit encouraged by Jerod Mayo and company coming out of those games. But now coming off of the Miami game, I'm starting to think a little bit differently here, and I'm not going to say these coaches need to be on the hot seat quite yet, but I think we're 1 week away from reopening that conversation quite a bit. And if the Patriots cannot perform at home against a very beatable Indianapolis Colts teams, I'm not even saying they have to win that game. Just show that you are improving and you look something a little bit more like the team that played the Bears and the Rams than the team that most recently played the Miami Dolphins, because Sunday was an absolute disaster. And the question coming out of this week that I've heard all over the Boston sports media, is the coaching the issue or is it the talent? And so many Patriots fans want to blame Elliott Wolf. And Elliott Wolf deserves some blame, right? I mean, Jalen Polk completely whiffed on that. He looks like he's going to be a bust. If a receiver doesn't pop right away as a rookie, doesn't need to be great, but if he doesn't pop right away, then chances are he's going to be a bust. And right now it looks like Jalen Polk is going to be that guy once again. Caden Wallace, Layden Robinson, a little too early to tell. But Elliott Wolf drafted Drake May, okay? And when you get the quarterback, that buys you some time. And there wasn't a lot he could have done this past offseason. He brought back basically the foundational pieces of the Patriots. I said this many, many months ago. I disagreed with bringing Kyle Duggar back, and we'll get to Duggar in just a moment. But overall, I was happy that he brought all the other remaining pieces back. And there just wasn't a lot out there in terms of NFL free agency. You weren't going to recruit a Tyron Smith at left tackle on a rebuilding team. They struck out trying to get Calvin Ridley. They struck out trying to trade for Brandon Ayuk. Elliott Wolf's options were limited. Now, we can criticize him a lot more as we head into the next offseason, but I'm of the belief that the Patriots do have enough talent. Are they a good team in terms of talent? No, but they're probably bottom third, but they're not 32nd. In my opinion, they have enough pieces, even with all the injuries on defense and even on offense, to be playing better than they currently are. And I think the issue as of right now has nothing to do with talent. I think it all has to do with coaching. And, you know, Jerod Mayo, these post-game press conferences that he's been having have really been awful. Just some of the quotes coming out of these, he always comes back on Monday and ends up having to correct himself. And he had a couple of nuggets on Sunday that just was baffling. Like, why would you even say something like that? And I think some of it was taken a bit out of context, but the first quote that he said on Sunday, he said, "You can't really establish a culture in year one as a head coach." Completely disagree with that. And he has established a culture, and I actually don't think the culture is all that bad. I do think it's a bit more loose than I would like to see. But overall, the players do play hard for Jerod Mayo. They just look kind of lost out there, and that's what I have an issue with in terms of the coaching. But Bill Parcells establishes a culture the moment he walks into a room. You could say the same about Bill Belichick. The aura, the presence of those guys establishes the culture right away, where the players take things very seriously once they know they're in the room. As a head coach, you have to establish a culture, not just in year one. You have to establish it in training camp. And for Jerod Mayo to say that, I think he actually deserves a little bit more credit than he's getting because, like I said, the players play hard and they don't give up. I gave the Patriots a lot more credit than most people did after Sunday's game because they did work their way back into that game. They made things a little bit interesting, making it a two-possession game, and then they were driving down the field, had the chance to cut it to a one-possession game. That's because the team didn't give up. They continued to fight for their head coach. So for him to go out and say something like that, like, give yourself some credit there, because I think this is actually one of the few positives we can say about Jerod Mayo at this moment in time. Also had another quote where he said, "I can't do anything for those guys once they take the field." And I think this was taken a bit out of context. I think he was speaking from like a player standpoint. How many times do you hear NFL players say something like, "Hey, once I'm on the field, it's not up to the coaching anymore. It's up to me to make plays out there." And I think that's what Jerod Mayo was saying. But when you're the head coach, just don't say stuff like that. That's something you can say to your team in team meetings, but when you're in front of the media, don't say anything like that. And Jerod Mayo, with all the critiques that I have with his coaching, of which there are many, I think the biggest one is just how he handles the media. He's too open. He says too many things, too many contradictory things, and that needs to get a little bit better because it creates all these stories in the Boston media. I mean, if you're coaching in Jacksonville, say whatever you want. No one's going to care. But in Boston, in New York, in Chicago, even Kansas City, some of these big football towns, Green Bay, don't say that stuff to the media because everyone's going to jump on it, and it just creates all this negative PR. And owner Robert Kraft is listening to these things. But my biggest criticism outside of the media stuff with Jerod Mayo is the fact that he's a defensive specialist. He played in the league. He was a Pro Bowl linebacker. He's done an excellent job at coaching the position. And the defense seems to be regressing. Now, I do think the run defense has gotten a little bit better over the last couple of weeks, but it's hard to tell how much of that is just patching things up or how much of that is the fact that the Rams and the Miami Dolphins just have so many weapons that they're going to throw the ball twice as much as they run the ball as they've done the last couple of weeks. The Patriots only gave up a little over 60 yards on the ground on Sunday, so you can't really complain about that too much. But the run defense has gotten better, but the secondary has gotten significantly worse. The DBs are just getting beat. They're looking lost in coverage. Same with the safeties. Kyle Duggar, again, this is the talent over coaching conversation. Kyle Duggar has enough talent to make plays. Him being distracted by Tyreek Hill and ignoring the running back and him just walking into the end zone, that's a coaching issue. Kyle Duggar was accountable for the first 3 touchdowns that happened in Miami on Sunday. You know that scene in The Replacements where the cheerleaders are distracting the opposing team and they end up giving up a big play? That's the Patriots defense right now. Any sort of odd wrinkle or motion or misdirection or distraction that some of these smart head coaches have, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, the defense bites at it every time. And we didn't really see that with Bill Belichick as the head coach. Even when he had some lesser defenses there, they were still buttoned up to the point where they were not going to give up some of those big plays that they gave up on Sunday against Miami. They were not going to get beat over the top on a safety blitz on 2nd and 9 like they did against the Rams the week before that. So I just don't understand why, maybe the run defense is getting better. Maybe the linebacker play has improved a little bit, but that was a low bar to overcome there. But to see the DBs struggle the way they have the last couple of weeks, and I know Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones, they're undersized. You probably need another cornerback there, but that's not going to be a priority this offseason. They have so many other bigger needs. You have good enough DBs out there. Like, Christian Gonzalez is basically an all-pro level cornerback at this point. And Marcus Jones and Jonathan Jones, undersized they may be, but they're more than salvageable out there. Jonathan Jones has been in the league for quite some time now. He won a Super Bowl with the Patriots. I think that might have been his rookie year. These guys, they have enough there to take the top receiver out of the game, which I think they kind of did with Tyreek Hill last week, and to double team or write up some schemes there that can help against the second and third best receivers. Guarding these tight ends, Jonnu Smith going off against the Patriots. We all knew that was going to happen with the way Jonnu Smith had been playing the last few weeks. They had no answer for him. So, as much as we want to blame DeMarcus Covington, and he deserves a ton of blame for this, I think he's going to end up being the fall guy here. I don't think he's going to be back next season, but when you have a defensive head coach, you expect the defense to be able to patch up some of those mistakes, and it's been getting worse in a lot of areas. The DBs, probably the Patriots, one of their greatest strengths outside of maybe the tight end position, maybe the quarterback now, but they have good DBs. Like, they probably are a top 10 team, potentially, in terms of cornerbacks, just because of all that Christian Gonzalez has, because of the speed of Marcus Jones and the veteran status of Jonathan Jones. They shouldn't be giving up these big plays. They shouldn't be blowing coverages the way they are right now, and that goes back to the coaching. And yeah, it falls on DeMarcus Covington, but you need a head coach in there. I know he's the CEO, he's overseeing everything, but Gerard Mayo has essentially delegated all of the offensive duties, even the development of Drake May, to Alex Van Pelt and T.C. McCartney. He needs to patch those things up. He needs to narrow his focus and just spend some time with the defense. Even with Bill Belichick the last few years, where he was spending most of his time on offense, he still had, top 5, top 10 NFL defense, and he would do just enough to prevent some of these things from happening that are happening right now on that side of the football. And when the secondary is struggling the way they are, that goes back to DeMarcus Covington, who took a real leap, right? Like, as a play caller now, he was a coach on the defensive line the year before. I get it. He's probably ignorant to a lot of the secondary stuff a little bit, and he's doing the best he can. But Gerard Mayo, between the two of those guys, that should be enough there to patch these things together, and it seems to be getting worse. So that's a real concern right now. And then there's the offense, right? And I think Alex Van Pelt has a job next year. I think he is certainly safer right now than DeMarcus Covington is on the other side of the football. I think the offense, we've seen enough improvements there, and we know that patchwork offensive line that they've had all season. They're trying to make it work. They didn't really make it work well on Sunday, but I do think Alex Van Pelt has gotten better, and there really wasn't much that he could do on Sunday, but these pre-snap penalties that we're seeing, like, you can kind of coach that out of guys, right? Like, you can. How much of a problem has this been with Vidarian Lowe all season long, where he's jumping before the snap? Same with Jamontre Jacobs, all the holding penalties, all of that. Like, that's not even just coaching. That's just like, don't screw up, don't make mistakes, hold these players accountable when they do make those mistakes. It's kind of become an acceptable part of the Patriots culture this year since Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt took over. But there still are some issues there. Like, on Sunday, we knew Jamontre Jacobs had a tough task ahead of him going up against those edge rushers of the Miami Dolphins. He had no help. Like, this is the scenario where you put a tight end out there, you just make sure that you're going to buy Drake May an extra half second so he's able to get rid of the football. They didn't give him any help all day on Sunday, and he ended up being benched for Sidy Sow, who came in at right tackle. Looked a little bit better in my opinion, but like, are you comfortable with Sidy Sow being the right tackle of the future? I know they drafted him because he had the potential to play there, but he's only playing there because DeMontre Jacobs hasn't been good enough and because he didn't have the support that Alex Van Pelt should have given him. You can scheme up these things to get rid of the football quickly, to make sure there's enough protection on that offensive line. We saw it in Chicago. The Patriots really went to the quick game, just getting rid of the football quickly, these short routes, curl routes, you name it, check downs. Drake May had those options available, and they just kind of abandoned that the last couple of weeks. And I think Alex Van Pelt's still trying to work in this West Coast offense with the bootlegs and the timing, and you really need a quarterback that's going to have time to hold on to the football. And it's not helping Drake May, because I don't care how good you are at quarterback, when you're getting hit every other play, well, you're going to start to see ghosts out there, and I think we saw that a little bit on Sunday with Drake May. I do think the early game scripts have been better with Alex Van Pelt in the offense, but once they get out of the first and second quarter and he just has to pull from his toolkit there and call certain plays, there really isn't a lot of creativity out there, and I think that needs to get a little bit better. And I also don't think they're aggressive enough. I mean, Patriots rarely go for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, in opportunities where 80% of teams in the NFL would go for it. The only time they do go for it on 4th down is when they're down by 2 or 3 touchdowns. We need to see them get a little bit more aggressive there with the 4th down conversions, just creating those opportunities so they can keep drives alive, and getting a little bit more aggressive in those late game situations where you don't have a script and you have to just pull from the playbook. Alex Van Pelt has to do a much better job there. But overall, I mean, my biggest concern here is, how is this going to impact the development of Drake May? And he's done a lot with very little. I mean, by far the worst offensive line in the NFL he's had to deal with this season. Not just the worst offensive line, the worst set of tackles to deal with, according to Pro Football Focus. That's what Drake May's had on his plate all season. And you're going to get to a point, we know the turnovers are an issue with Drake May. You're going to start reinforcing those bad habits the more and more that he has to deal with these situations. So give him some help. Put in a tight end to block a little bit longer before he goes out for the check down. Just give Drake May some time so he doesn't reinforce these bad habits that he had from college that are starting to carry over into the NFL. He can't be putting the ball on the ground every game or every other game like he's been doing. And yeah, I know that's on the quarterback. He needs to hold on to the ball and protect it better and just take the sack at times, even if you're going to lose 15 yards on the play. Yeah, Drake May has to do better there, but he's also in the position where he has to play hero ball every single game because he has so little to work with. You know, not to mention the offensive weapons that he has. But, I mean, you have enough with Demario Douglas. You have enough with Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. He just needs a little bit more time there. And Alex Van Pelt needs to do a better job of scheming it up. But the coaching staff, like I said, I'm not ready to start calling for everyone's jobs. But we need to start seeing improvements. And the reason I'm not calling for it now is they had 4 weeks where it looked like they were improving. And then they took 2 steps back in Miami. So they have an opportunity here to get back on track against a very beatable Indianapolis Colts team. You know, they can make Anthony Richardson look like Caleb Williams from a couple of weeks ago. I think this could be a game where the Patriots rack up 4 to 5 sacks if they scheme it up right. And the defense there is beatable. This should be Drake May's best game of the season going against Indianapolis. If the Patriots don't show up on Sunday, and again, I'm not saying they have to win, but if they don't show up and they get blown out by this Colts team, then we have to really start asking questions. And I think this has to be the game where owner Robert Kraft really assesses this coaching staff and has to have the guts to make very difficult decisions. And look, I know Patriots coaches in the past, they pretty much all got off to bad starts. Bill Parcells actually had a worse record his first season as head coach with the Patriots at this point in the season, but they ended up winning their last 5 games there. Pete Carroll struggled a little bit early, but they had some playoff teams with him. And then after Bill Belichick, they only won 4 games, or I think 5 games, his first season as head coach in the New England Patriots. They won the Super Bowl the following season. We need to start seeing improvements from this team. And if they're going to continue to regress the rest of the way, which, I mean, they got some tough matchups. Yeah, you got the Colts coming up, but you're going up against a very good Arizona Cardinals team who is fighting to win that division in the NFC West. Hard to predict who's going to win that division. You're going to get Arizona's best on the road. You are coming off a bye, so that helps. But that's going to be a tough game. You have to face Buffalo twice. You can pretty much chalk those 2 games up as losses. And then you have the LA Chargers coming to Foxborough the second to last week of the season. And they're an improved team from last year at the very least. And they don't have a ton of talent, but they're buttoned up because they have Jim Harbaugh as their head coach. we need to see improvement. And up until this last Sunday, I was feeling pretty good about this team, but they took a massive step back. So I think Sunday has to be a game where Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft and company, Elliott Wolf, if he's factored in there, he's coming back. He's not going anywhere. So don't call for Elliott Wolf's job. He's coming back. He drafted Drake May. That buys him a couple more years. They have to use this game to really assess, is this working with DeMarcus Covington at defensive coordinator? Is this working with Alex Van Pelt at offensive coordinator? And really ask the tough question, is this working out with Jerod Mayo? I don't think Robert Kraft has the guts to fire Jerod Mayo if they just struggle the rest of the season. I just don't see it happening. He said he was going to hire him 5 years ago. The year the Patriots won the Super Bowl, he was already talking about Jerod Mayo being the head coach of the future. I just don't see it happening. He's a young head coach. Maybe he expects him to take a leap from year 1 to year 2. But if you're going to give him that opportunity, you have to see this team continue to improve the way they were looking before the Miami game. This Indianapolis game is a big one because those last 4 games probably are going to be all losses. And if you're not able to at least be competitive against the Colts and then show that, hey, we can put up a good fight against good football teams those last 4 weeks of the season, then everything should be on the table at this point. And the biggest thing is you don't want to hinder the development of Drake May. And if you're bringing back Jerod Mayo and he has another, 3, 4, 5 win season next year, you're already halfway through Drake May's rookie contract. And then you're bringing in a new head coach. You're bringing in a new offensive coordinator. How much is that going to hinder his development? We're starting from scratch once again. And Patriots are a long way from being competitive at this point. They have to be competitive next year. They have to be at least on the outside of the playoff picture looking in as we head into December of the 2025 NFL season. Otherwise, yeah, Jerod Mayo is probably gone. But I think you have to have that conversation, especially if the Patriots do struggle Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts, because you're not going to get many opportunities to bring in a head coach who is going to be that difference maker. And there are some coaches out there who can be that this offseason. The number one guy who's on everyone's mind, I don't think he'd go to New England. I think he'd probably go to Chicago over the Patriots. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. You want a creative offensive head coach? That's the direction the NFL is moving toward. The best teams in the league all have creative offensive head coaches. We see it with the Niners. We see it with the Rams. We certainly see it with the Kansas City Chiefs. You have an opportunity to get Ben Johnson. And if that doesn't work out, you have an opportunity to get Mike Vrabel, a guy who is going to make sure that the culture is buttoned up and not overly loose. And look, I'm fine with the loose culture and things are different in today's NFL with the younger generations coming in. I get all of that. But hearing the reports that the Patriots were laughing and smiling after Sunday's game in the locker room in Miami, you want to see those guys a little bit disappointed. Now, Drake May, I guess, was beside himself. He was disappointed. But for the most part, the team kind of has accepted the culture of losing, and you don't want to see that. And as I've said many times, the NFL with the head coaches, they go back and forth from the players coach to the drill sergeant coach. And if it doesn't work out with Jerod Mayo, well, you're probably going to have to bring in the drill sergeant coach. And Mike Vrabel does fit that. He is the drill sergeant coach that would get that done. But you could also bring in a creative guy like Ben Johnson. And if the Patriots struggle the rest of the way, if they continue to regress, particularly on the defensive side of the football, where Jerod Mayo's specialty is, I hope Robert Kraft is willing to have those tough conversations. Unfortunately, I don't think he is. So some other news for the Patriots today. They released left guard Michael Jordan, who started all 11 games this season. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact Cole Strange is coming back. We may see him in the starting lineup on Sunday. Hopefully Strange works out pretty well. He's also been working out at the center position. So, I know Ben Brown has been kind of a mediocre stopgap. I actually think he's done a pretty decent job considering, especially in that offense where the center has so much control. It's not on the quarterback in these West Coast offenses. It's really on the center. I think Ben Brown has done a decent job, and that's a big ask for Cole Strange coming off of an injury. So I would expect him to be back at left guard if he's ready to go on Sunday. But they also picked up another guard, Lester Cotton, picked him up off of waivers. I know absolutely nothing about this guy. He did start 8 games for the Miami Dolphins this season. Let me know in the comments if you know anything about Lester Cotton. If he started this past Sunday, I have no idea. But they basically swapped out Michael Jordan for Lester Cotton. And, I don't disagree with it. I mean, Michael Jordan, especially the last month or so, even as the team was improving on the offensive side of the football, he was struggling quite a bit. So I don't disagree with this move, especially with Cole Strange coming back. And hopefully Lester Cotton can be a contributor there. But we could see a completely different offensive line once again on Sunday against Indianapolis. We could see a lineup that this might be my prediction. I'm not sure what the Caden Wallace status is, but we could see, I think Vidarian Lowe will be back at left tackle. He's probably the most improved player on this team, but still not good enough. Cole Strange at left guard. I think Ben Brown will be back at center. Michael Wenu, of course, at right guard. And then we could see Caden Wallace if he's ready to go at right tackle, or we could see Sidy Sow back out there at right tackle. So a completely new offensive line combination. Not exactly what you want to have happen in Week 12, but you're getting real NFL players that can be placed there. And Cole Strange has been good enough, in my opinion, and hopefully he can pick back up coming off of an injury. And like I said at the top of the podcast, it's so early to tell on guys like Layden Robinson, who I think they want to be a future starting guard for this team, and Caden Wallace, who I think they want to be a future starting right tackle. It's going to take these guys a little bit of time, especially with the injury issues that they faced this year. But hopefully that will help and give Drake May a little bit more time, because the pressure was pretty bad on Sunday against Miami. And then, of course, the other big news coming out this week, Jabril Peppers is back. No idea what's going on legally there, but he was removed from the commissioner's exempt list and was reinstated by the NFL. The Patriots held their own internal investigation. They didn't see anything there to keep him from seeing the field, so he's back practicing with the team. He was back at practice today in the throwback helmets. So we could see Jabril Peppers back out there on Sunday, and with all the struggles that Kyle Duggar has had these last few weeks, it's going to be nice to have Jabril Peppers out there, because he is a smart defensive player, and he's certainly an aggressive physical guy and makes a big difference out there defensively. So this is a real good opportunity for the Patriots, a real bounce back week. Got Jabril Peppers coming back, maybe Cole Strange coming back, maybe some improved pieces there on that offensive line. You're going up against a defense that Drake May should be able to feast on, and you're going up against an offense that you should be able to replicate with the same game plan you had against the Chicago Bears a few weeks ago. But like I said, Patriots get blown out against this team. All options should be on the table for Robert Kraft. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think should be done with this coaching staff? If the Patriots do lose on Sunday, do you think Robert Kraft will have the guts to actually revisit the idea of having Gerard Mayo as head coach? Curious to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, and like this video, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And we'll see you very soon.
Cast, we're breaking it down. From Foxboro's view to the struggles in town. One bad loss away, disaster's near, but we still bleed red, white, and blue here. We thought we were climbing, we saw some light. Decent games gave us hope, but Sunday's not right. Coaching or talent, the big question burns, but improvement's the goal. It's what this team yearns. Mayo's defense slipping, players out of sync. Run stops improving, or just what teams think. Secondary regressing, distractions in play. Kyle Duggar off target, Tyreek sway. Laughing in the locker room, too loose a scene. We need grit, we need fire, a Patriots machine. Pats cast, the fans demand more. We're chasing that feeling we had before. One bad loss away, disaster's near, but in the heart of New England, we persevere. blood, but we've gotta stand. Aggression's missing, we punt it away. Where's the fire of Parcells or the Belichick way? Turn it around, it's time to brew. We're waiting for sparks from this coaching crew. Buffalo looms, but we faced them before. Indy's up next, let's settle the score. Turn Richardson into another big fail, and prove to the doubters we're still on the trail. Pats, cast, this is our fight. One bad loss, but we'll make it right. No more excuses, time to improve. Patriots nation's got nothing to lose. Pats, we're breaking it down. From Foxboro's field to the struggles in town. One bad loss away, disaster's near, but we still bleed red, white, and blue here.